Good afternoon, Ann George. Good to see everybody. We are going to start the work session. We had some interesting announcements today, so stay tuned to the evening news and you'll hear about some of the things happening in Baltimore County. So we're going to begin tonight with the last item on the agenda and under miscellaneous business, and it is Resolution 9-24 introduced by Councilman Marks. Request for traffic signal installation. Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In 2016, I sponsored legislation to allow for the Villages of White Marsh Plan Unit development to proceed through the review process. The PUD resolution reduced the allowable density by 40% and required the donation of a 20-acre park parcel to Baltimore County, along with $100,000 to be used for the installation of a traffic signal. The resolution was supported by the South Perry Hall Boulevard Improvement Association. A substantial part of this project has been finished, but the Department of Public Works and Transportation has not yet installed the light, even though traffic has greatly increased in this area. Furthermore, if the location does not yet meet warrants, this intersection clearly will meet those warrants once the new Nottingham Middle School opens in the fall. Mr. Chairman and members of the Council, when we craft resolutions that allow plan unit developments to proceed, it is after a series of delicate negotiations designed to meet the community's needs. I had discussions with DPW leadership, the developer, and the community before this resolution was considered by the Council. In my opinion, it is time for the county to be proactive and anticipate the added traffic from this development and the opening of Nottingham Middle School and allow the light to be constructed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts they'd like to share with Councilman Marks? Okay, thank you again, Councilman Marks.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
And it is unusual, I guess, for a council member to put in a resolution regarding a traffic improvement. I do think it's warranted here because the original plan unit development resolution specifically said that we should have a traffic light at this intersection. This is broadly supported by the community. And again, we have a new middle school opening in the fall, 1,400-seat middle school. It is time to be proactive and get the light operational. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. I don't think anyone had any questions, comments, or thoughts. You have one up. Councilman Marks has
one more thing. We did get a letter from Julie Henn, who represents the 5th District on the Board of Education. She stated her support for this light to be installed. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, before we go to speaker, just want to check with Councilman Marks one more time. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Ms. Belcastro, I understand we have a speaker today?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Andrew Lingelbach.
Okay. Mr. Lingelbach.
You may begin your testimony.
Hello, I'd like to thank the County Council very much for this opportunity to discuss this very important traffic intersection for my community. I am on the board of directors for the South Perry Hall Boulevard Improvement Association. I do want to apologize for any background noise. I found that since I have the opportunity to speak virtually, I would speak from the intersection itself. I think that it is very valuable to show that the traffic is already here and that it will only continue to grow. As the Villages of White Marsh are completed, as well as future development down the road, I think this is an excellent opportunity for the county to take a step forward and plan and prepare the infrastructure for development. It seems as though the county has decided that Baltimore's direction will be development, and I think if that is the direction that they'd like to drive the county in, then we should be able to drive through our intersections safely without harm and with the appropriate protection from traffic signaling. Furthermore, since this the original resolution was put at 2016 for the development of the villages at White Marsh, $100,000 has been floating around mysteriously. It has been nearly a decade, and the signals have not been erected. Therefore, I think it is highly not only important for the safety, but also for the integrity of the county and the infrastructure development to follow through with the requirement they had for the developer and for their dedication to the safety of the residents who live within their districts. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I hope all these cars weren't too noisy.
Thank you, Mr. Lingelbach. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts they'd like to share with Mr. Lingelbach? Councilman Ertel? Councilman.
I just had a general question. It sounds like $100,000 was paid by the developer of this area, and that was meant to be for the light. Do we know where?
Is that a fair statement, Councilman Marks?
I believe so, and Mr. Boswick also followed up with, I believe, Mr. Gutwald about this, and my understanding is the $100,000 has been paid.
So the $100,000 has been paid, has not been expended, so it's, as Mr. Lingelbach said, is floating around. So that's really interesting, because I guess that's something we'll look into, and certainly your resolution will move that into the right direction. Councilman Jones says he does not have it. Okay. So is Mr. Lingelbach gone? I just want, hey, Mr. Lingelbach. This is it.
I'm still here.
I wanted to say that you set a new standard for testimony. And it's pretty clever to do it from the site in which the subject of the discussion.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the effort that Councilman Marks has put into this. It really is appreciated by the community. I know technically I'm supposed to be the only one on the call, but we do have other representatives from the association, and this is very important to us, especially as our community continues to grow. We want to make sure it grows safely.
Okay, well, you all stay safe at that intersection if there's a high volume of traffic, and drivers today are just speeding all the time.
Well,
Thanks so much.
thank you very much for your well wishes. Interestingly enough, there is a wheelchair ramp that leads down into the intersection, but with no crosswalk. So it looks like it's almost ready for a red light.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilman.
very quickly, I don't know anybody here to answer the question. What is the total cost of installing these lights at this intersection? Anybody know?
Mr. Russell?
Okay. So so this is covering 1/4 of the cost. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Russell, is that, so I thought that traffic signals were around the $25,000, $50,000 range. Is that for a single, a light at a single road?
That's for the full signal. We actually looked at it, the original development plan was not putting the eastbound lane in.
I have loads of questions. I really do.
And that APWQ was actually written right in the approved plan. We were to monitor the situation, monitor the intersection for years to come until the light was we looked at it in 2022, it didn't warrant the light. We plan to go out within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're going to look at it again and take some more counts and see if it meets that warrant to actually put the light in. Just got to keep in mind, we got to go our federal documents to install a traffic signal. Traffic signal does.
Mr. Russell, could I ask you to come up to the witness area? I think some of the members may have questions, so might as well get it on the record. I'm sorry, Mr. Russell, go right ahead. Thank you for coming up.
Yeah, the original development plan, when it was approved, in lieu of widening the eastbound at Buck Schoolhouse's approach, it was deemed cheaper to put a signal in. But at that time, the signal wasn't warranted. The plan also says, the approved development plan, that we would look at it and monitor conditions of the intersection as a future candidate for signalization. We looked at it in 2022, it didn't meet warrants, and we plan to look at it again within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russell. Any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts to share with Mr. Russell? Thanks again, Mr. Russell.
well,
Hang on, David, Councilman Marks.
I mean, I respect you a lot, and we've worked well together on things, but the manual and uniform traffic control devices, it's not a hard requirement. It's guidance, right?
It's federally guided as far as putting a signal in, because anytime you put a signal in, you're going to miss those angle accidents. And anytime you put a signal in, you got to remember, you're going to cause more rear end accidents. This site itself has 10 accidents in the past 8 years. And I believe 8 of those were rear end rights and lefts.
I think our point is the presence of that new middle school. And I salute the county executive for funding this middle school. It's going to be a great improvement. That makes a real need to get some sort of traffic control in that area.
Right, and to be true to the original development plan, we're going to keep studying the area. So if it does warrant the signal will go in. But as far as that, DPWT is bound by those guidelines.
You didn't know I knew.
I think we've shown flexibility in the past, but I thank you for doing whatever you can to advance the signal.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councilman Young?
All right, if I could follow up, the Councilman Marks had asked about requirements versus guidelines. And you mentioned that it's federal guidelines that are directing you, right?
Yes, correct. They direct everybody. They direct Baltimore County, the state of Maryland.
They
And
sure do. So I'm just going down the rabbit hole because I already did it. If we went down and contacted the feds and they came back and we told them that we're being limited here and we would like a review of federal guidelines, and they came back and told us that they're just guidelines, you don't have to follow them letter of the law because it's not a law, they're just guiding your choice of what it is that you choose to do or we choose to do. Is that, I mean, that's the response I've gotten from the feds. We've gone down this path before where there's a guideline in terms of a book that we follow that's coming down from the feds. And when it comes to state highways, when it comes to local ordinances, that the state will follow and also look at. But they're not using it as a restrictive piece of language that prevents you from doing anything outside of what that guideline is. Is that accurate or is that not accurate?
well, we could definitely reach out to our federal partners and even our state partners and get your answer direct,
Great.
whether it does warrant or it doesn't warrant at this certain intersection.
Got it. Understood. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I mean, look, I used to work for the Federal Highway Administration, I used to work for the Federal Highway Administration and the Maryland Department of Transportation, and I know why these are put into place. I get it. But I also think there's a human element here, and that's why people reach out to elected officials and policymakers to try to make the best decisions. My point is that this area, I think, would be benefited from a traffic signal. We have a new 1,400-seat middle school opening in the fall, and we need, in my opinion, to plan proactively. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Any of the members have any additional questions for Mr. Russell? Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Okay, next item will be fiscal matters. It'll be a contract, fiscal matter 6, is that right? But we have a speaker for that. I have Ann George. Miss George, okay, she was just here. All right, let's go to the next item then for right now, and that will be Mr. Pesterfield. Mr. Walt Pesterfield, fiscal matter on food services.
Good afternoon, Council Chair and Council members. The Department of Corrections is requesting approval for a Fourth Amendment to a contract with Aramark Correctional Services to continue to provide food for the detention center inmates and our staff. The department contract extension is necessary to avoid any interruption in services as the county requires additional time to fully negotiate the terms and conditions of the new contract with Aramark. The term ends on March 31st, 2024, and the proposed amendment commences on April 1st, 2024, and extends through December 31st, 2024, or the date the county executes a new agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Pesterfield. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts they'd like to share with Mr. Pesterfield? Okay, hearing none. Thanks again, Mr. Pesserfield.
Thank you.
Next item is on page 16. And the item is Office of Budget and Finance Account Validation Services. Mr. Reed?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. Fiscal Matter 4 is a request for a third amendment to a contract with Manufacturers and Traders Trust Company, doing business as M&T Bank. It's our main bank, to provide account validation services in order to validate a receiving account prior to sending an ACH or an electronic funds transfer, domestic wire, or real-time payment. The proposed amendment commences upon council approval and will add account validation services and associated pricing. It's nominal. It's $13,000 based on the estimated amount that we believe to transact. This is an additional precautionary measure in the latest and best practice to protect our financial resources, and it further ensures that funds are sent exactly where they are to be intended, and this changes the original solicitation, which is why we're asking for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts they'd like to share with Mr. Reed? Councilman Artel.
I have one question. So the amounts here are a little strange in the sense there's 13,000 next to 4.1 million. So is this service an extra $13,000 on top of what we're already?
We don't expect to expend the total amount of the appropriation. It should be $13,000 for the remainder of the life of the contract for the additional years.
So how many, the 13,000, that could be monthly, or how does that work?
Annually. In total, in the total amount. We expect to do about 20 transactions a month. We're only validating new accounts that come up, so it's not something we'll do each transaction, but for new disbursements or accounts.
So the 4.1 million total, what does that represent? That's the total?
That's the total amount we pay M&T Bank to be our banker.
Total?
The existing contract that was approved.
13 is new?
Correct, but we...
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Word. I
get it, yeah.
wasn't really jiving the way it looks on the sheet here. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reed. No other questions for Mr. Reed? Okay, next item, we're going to go to page 22, and that is Mr. Richardson, and it's Savvy Shelter Savvy, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon,
How are
Chairman
you?
Patoka, members of the council. So the administration is seeking your approval for a contract with Shelter Savvy for the review of our Animal Services Division. As you all know, Baltimore County Animal Services operates the county's only open admission municipal shelter, providing sheltering care to stray and lost, surrendered, abused, and neglected animals in our communities, and ensures the safety and welfare of the county's animals and communities. So our shelter is currently fully overcrowded, and this is not a unique problem to us in Baltimore County. In 2022, Baltimore County Animal Services impounded 6,919 animals. So it's not unusual for us to adopt out 4 dogs in a day, but then on the same date receive 10 more dogs for care. So with the many pets that were adopted during the COVID pandemic, when individuals were home and wanted companionship, these animals are now being returned and relinquished in high numbers as people are returning to work or travel and are finding it difficult to care for their pets. So we're engaging with Shelter Savvy to provide a full review of all of our services in this division with a specific focus on the areas of the administrative hold, the role and interaction with the commission, and then any other public-private partnership options that could be available to us. This is a $50,000 contract, and there's no renewals. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts for Mr. Richardson? Hearing none. Ms. Belcastro, do you have any speakers today?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, do you, maybe you want Mr. Richardson to do his other item, and then we can call Ms. George up so that,
Oh, sure, let's do that.
okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Richardson.
The next contract is, we're seeking approval for is with Recovery Innovations, doing business as RI International. So we're seeking services for the design and potential implementation of a crisis stabilization center. This is a 6-month contract with not to exceed $241,900. There are no renewals of this contract. So since 2001, Baltimore County has been methodically developing a crisis response system. Over time, the system has added services and increased the capacity of the system to serve residents of Baltimore County. The crisis response system is a partnership between Baltimore County Department of Health, Baltimore County Police, and our vendor affiliate Sante Group. The goal of our system is to provide accessible, coordinated, and comprehensive services and offer diversion from hospital emergency departments and or criminal justice involvement. So there's a gap in our service delivery system currently, and a crisis stabilization center, a physical location for individuals to go to when they are in crisis and do need to be treated, but not in the hospital emergency department, is what we're looking for. And we're seeking to understand what a comprehensive set of services to assist residents of Baltimore County would look like who are experiencing an acute behavioral health crisis, which is inclusive of mental health and substance use disorder difficulties. The array of these services included is a safe location for individuals to de-escalate, behavioral health assessment, and the initiation of treatment and linkages to services. And I'll be happy to take any questions on RI International.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Do any of the members have any questions, comments? Mr. Councilman Ertel.
So again, we're using ARPA money to do more studies, I guess.
A review and design and review.
So a question with this, we have a bunch of different entities that all deal with this. And often the state is involved with mental health crises and treatment centers. I have several in my district that have 15 people living in a house, and we don't seem to be monitoring what's going on the treatment side of things. Is this going to look at the system holistically, or just how Baltimore County operates?
It will take a look holistically, but it's also looking at Baltimore County. Currently, as a local behavioral health administration, we do receive funding from the state. A lot of that funding we then do provide to different vendors. This will give us opportunity to look at our system in whole and see the full spectrum of wraparound services, the way we're building out our crisis stabilization or crisis response right now. So we would be reviewing all aspects.
I mean, do we do this internally ever, or do we always have to get a study at $240,000 to do this?
This is something that we don't quite have the capacity to do internally. This company are subject matter experts in the field. We don't currently do direct care in Baltimore County. So the majority, all of our work that we're doing, as I mentioned in the summary, we utilize affiliated Sante right now as our vendor for the crisis response model. So this would give us opportunity to look at what direct service would look like for behavioral health.
Do we have an outpatient mental health center in Baltimore County? Is that Salante?
Then I don't know if they don't have a physical center.
There's no urgent care. We don't have any mental health urgent care in Baltimore County.
I don't think we would consider anything urgent care mental health. No, I can follow up on that.
That's what at the state level. That's what they claim that our big problem is, and not in Baltimore County, in the state. We're one of the few states in the entire country that don't have mental health urgent care. And I think another thing that's a little not concerning, but we're looking at this, and often the number one answer we hear out in the world here is that there's not enough mental health counselors to go around. So we're kind of beating ourselves up about not being able to treat people, but we don't have enough people. So it's just a statement, but I think is there a way to look at that as well?
It's definitely something that we're looking at across the board. We're facing that as a department ourselves. I oversee HR, so hiring social workers has been very difficult for us over the past 3 or 4 years. They have other opportunities to work.
I completely understand. It's a national dilemma,
Right.
and I just don't know that a study sometimes is going to do anything other than tell us we don't have enough mental health clinicians. But I'm hoping that because we're doing it, it will help us.
We're hoping it will help to spur that. It will also help us to address the emergency rooms that are being inundated with people that are in a mental health crisis. So any type of diversion that we can offer, we're hoping that the study would be able to provide us some more insight into that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Councilman Ertel, oh, I'm sorry.
You go.
I was just going to say, some of the hospitals have psychiatric emergency care, urgent care. I know Northwest Hospital has capacity to treat urgent or emergency psychiatric cases that come in. But I don't know that all the hospitals, maybe this will help define that.
Is that part of it as well?
Yeah, part of it would be to look at as a county as a whole. Yes, just the full spectrum of our behavioral health crisis response system is what we're trying to review and continue to build out.
Thank you. Councilman Cash, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, it was Ann George who sent me a chart that shows that the state of Maryland is in the top 10 as far as killing animals in shelters. And what I'm wondering, we passed a bill, I guess it was maybe 6 months ago, that dealing with, some people during the COVID issue, lost their jobs, whatever. Families don't have as much money as they used to, inflation and everything. So people are turning in their animals because they can't afford to keep them any longer. Some are turning in their animals because they need health care and they can't afford that. The bill dealt with having on the county website all the services that are provided by Animal Services Division. And I was wondering, has that been done?
I know we've been making some updates to the website. I can confirm that and get back to your office.
I just think it's very important that people know that there are resources if you find yourself in a position where you can't keep your pet or you can't afford to have a medical services done for the pet. I mean, it sure beats turning the animal in and possibly having the animal put down. And with this study of animal services, will they be looking into this issue?
Yes, definitely. So our live release rate is a metric that we track regularly. And the goal of this would be to also help us determine how we can better engage any public-private partnerships and also better engage the commission and the public in general. Part of that would be more transparency and more communication.
I think that we need to be more aggressive with this and trying for the partner. Now, the city has a partnership and works pretty well from everything that I've heard. And, when I've been in government long enough to know when you see something working somewhere else, and I did this as a teacher, you copy it. You copy it. And so I think that the county needs to look, let's say at Montgomery County, city, et cetera, and copy them. They have successful animal services, and so we need to do that. And I'm hoping that you will move a little faster in publicizing what services we have. And the other thing that I think that we need to do is, and I'm sure that it would be successful, is to have pantries for animals. You know, if you can't afford to feed your animal, I mean, I know people would donate, I know it, to the animal shelter on Manor Road, because that's not as convenient for most people. And I'm wondering if there's any county facilities in other parts of the county where people could donate food for pets so that we can help reduce the number of kills in our shelters. And I'd like to, Ann George is here, and Ann has done so much to try to help us to deal with the problems of kill shelters and other issues with animal services. And I know sometimes she gets a little frustrated. I do too, because you know, you want to get something done right away. And you know, I learned the government doesn't work that fast. But you know, we need to really get on this, because this is an immediate issue. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any other questions? Councilman Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Richardson, good to see you again. And again, thank you for taking your time a few weeks ago to talk about the services available in Baltimore County, how they're provided, and how we rely on partnerships to provide just a basic and sometimes also agreeable, less than adequate mental health services. So reading through this, I just wanted to confirm with, is this would be making recommendations and changing things, so it's offering suggestions on how we would then stand up and run as a county, or we would stand up a building and then rely on our partnerships to then execute that plan?
It's both. We're looking at both options, and we're hoping that they will be able to come in and give us a very comprehensive analysis of what it would look like if we stood it up, and then had a vendor come in and provide the services.
So giving you the options, so instead of, you know, well, going through with using their expertise and making suggestions on what they see.
Exactly.
And obviously this is why you're going down this route, but what we have in front of us now, what we already have in place, is our crisis response system. Sorry. Our crisis response system is already in place. Just thinking about what we already have there, how will this bolster or help assist us in all of the services already being provided through our crisis response system? Or what do you anticipate seeing?
So this would provide a full wraparound for what we currently have. Currently, we're responding, but we often have nowhere for us to physically put people who are in crisis, or for us to refer people to go to, besides where they're already going to the hospitals, as Chairman Patoka mentioned, and then whatever other locations we have.
Right. So we try our best, then we hit that wall, and then we don't have other options, and this is about what that next step is.
Correct.
Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Young, what we found as a part of the pandemic, this is some of the, you know, outtakes of the pandemic, is that we don't have enough capacity to make sure that, you know, you got the acute issues that happen, and then you have the broader wraparound services. And I think this is a reality for many of our jurisdictions right now. The pandemic taught us a lot about what kind of capacity that you need for, you know, these acute mental health crises. I think it was exacerbated to an extent that nobody realized, and it showed us more about how you need more wraparound services. You know, what happens after you get the person stabilized? You know, they just go back to their regular life. A lot of times you get this recidivism, you know, with the mental health crises. You know, I can speak personally for myself with my own family. Right. You know, not here, but what do you do to keep that person stable and have wraparound services for them? This assessment, again, it's one of those, we don't know what we don't know. Most jurisdictions don't, but we know this. We don't have currently enough capacity in the county to really help that person and continue to be with that person to keep them stable for the long term. And that's what this is trying to determine. What's the best approach for Baltimore County?
And what you're describing at the micro level, if you count the county as a micro level, is the same thing at the state level. We're not providing it, let alone forget the county. At the state level, we're not providing that basic expectation of mental health care, which we're clearly experiencing from not having those facilities options at a local level. The state doesn't have them either.
I can speak firsthand at the state level, particularly for when I was a director of Baltimore City DSS, youth in care who were in crisis that we didn't have capacity, especially around this, acute issues that occur. You get people stable, but then what happens after that? Right. Because they just
complete continuum of care, right? And I guess the question, not to put the cart before the horse, since we're looking at potentially expanding or recommendations that would expand that role, is there expectation of funding from the state to help support that effort?
Of course, our position is we're going to seek every resource possible, SAMHSA, the state, whatever we can, but we have to know more about what that model looks like.
Sure.
What is it that's it's in our best interest, with best practices that are there, because this became, water for crystal clear during the pandemic, that we just did not have the kind of capacity, not only Baltimore County, nationally. I think maybe Councilmember Ertel talked about the national, challenges with, mental health crisis intervention. Right. Something that local jurisdictions, but it's also state, but I also say that SAMHSA has to be a big player in this because it was hidden before. Now it's in our face. When it's revealed, you have to do something about it. But what is the best and most strategic way to create wraparound services and then finance wraparound services with blended funding wherever you can get that funding from?
And the last thing, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it, just since we're talking about government provided, either whether it's through county government or state government, just at the moment.
We don't. Yeah. In Baltimore County, we don't necessarily provide direct service, but we partner with so many other entities that provide the service.
And to that end, I just wanted to, if anybody's listening, just those community providers, those partners that we do utilize to provide those services are doing an amazing job to do what they can. But even with engaging with them, even engaging with them, they'll admit that there is a certain level that they're not able to provide. And even they have an expectation that they expect the government to step in and provide that assistance. So look forward to engaging with you more as things progress. So thank you for the conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Young. Councilman Ertel.
I've just a statement. And people may not know this here, but we are getting, the state has money coming our way for under what's called the CRRF monies, which is the Cannabis Recovery and Reparations Fund. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, there's already all kinds of hands that want to get into this money to do all kinds of goofy things with it. And here's a situation where we have crises, and hopefully we can and by the way, we as a county council have to pass a bill in order for the county to spend the money.
That's right.
We got our first disbursement, I guess it's just sitting there because we can't spend it, of $600,000. And it looks like we're going to probably get somewhere in that neighborhood. It may drop, it may greatly increase. We don't know yet. But I'm hoping that when we're getting these new monies, that we start looking at some of our crisis, our major problems, and not spend it on things that are pie in the sky type things. But let's help the citizens that we have now who are in crisis and need our help desperately instead of coming up with new programs. And this isn't an indictment of anyone, but this is going to come before us, and there's going to be all kinds of people parading in here wanting a piece of that pie. So,
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
yes, Madam AO.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Ertel, you're quite correct. The CRF is indeed coming, but there are really definitive guidelines on how the money can be spent. And yes, we are looking at the most strategic way to address issues that the money can be spent, but you're right. The money can't be spent until local legislation is passed. So the administration is working on that as well. And then there's also the consideration of community input, just like there typically is with these restitution kinds of funds. But believe you me, the administration is looking strategically at what services and what ways this money can be used to address unmet needs in an array of areas. But get the legislation passed, and they're working on that.
And I got the list of zip codes that the money is supposed to go to, and I can tell you that those zip codes all probably have a lot of services that are needed in this area. So
I agree with you. It's got to be strategic.
But I'm very concerned about, what we're gonna see in the future with this money.
Thank you, Councilman Ertel. Ms. Rogers, have you concluded your remarks? Okay. Ms. Rogers, had you concluded your remarks? Okay, thank you.
Sir, Attorney Benjamin and I were just saying that you have to look at the guidance around what the money can be used for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think all the members have commented. Ms. Belcastro, do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Ann George is here to talk about FM6.
Ann George, welcome. Thank you, Ann.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you. And I'm very happy to endorse this grant request for money for a review. It's long overdue, and I feel enthusiastic about it. I just want to let everybody know. And I was very taken by some of the things that are included, including the Animal Advisory Commission. And, but I had a few questions I wanted to ask. And one of the things is I'm passing out a review that was done of Montgomery County, and they applied for a grant in July, and the review was finished in September. It was amazing to me that they got something through that fast. So, but it also includes, in addition to this very comprehensive review of all aspects of animal services and very detailed recommendations with point-by-point tasks to do to recover, kind of make changes. It included a year of virtual support by the person that did the review, and another review at the end of 1 year to see how they progress. And I was wondering if there was any way that that could be included, or is it kind of too late at this point if it's not included? That was one thing I had. The other thing is that I've talked to Mr., I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Richardson, and he said that that this is going to be grant money, because it's not going to be out of operational funds, which I thought. So that kind of had my concern. You know, I'm kind of a fiscal conservative about spending the county's money, the taxpayers' money. So that, I think we've cleared that one up. And the other one was the long time that it took this to happen. Now, it seems in the description that it had something to do with MBE requirements. But one of the things I thought, well, gosh, we're going all this and we end up with 5%. I guess it's because of female that it was approved. But we really need more diversity, equity, and inclusion in the animal shelter too. This is a massive movement nationally. There are nonprofit organizations that provide graphics showing diversity for when they do their posts on Facebook and on their websites and everything. So I just wanted to make that point. But in terms of the shelter, I also gave them a copy of the petition that we have over 500 signatures for more funding for the animal shelter. And according to that, there's a little chart in there that tells about nationally, they recommend about $8 per capita, and we are at 4.9. So we're significantly underfunded and therefore understaffed. And the other issue is, and I'm sure this will come out in this report, is that right now, they're just, as you said, 10 dogs in for every 6 going out. They're just focusing on outcomes, and that stresses the staff. And there's no opportunity to develop some of the programs that would stem the intake. And as Councilman Catch pointed out, he's very concerned about what's called a safety net. And I'm not sure how any government can, and Montgomery County is struggling with this too, can totally fund animal services without the support, not necessarily the management, but the support of a nonprofit in the community or multiple nonprofits. In Baltimore City, it's Barks, but they also have 2 nonprofits. One is Show Your Soft Side, which helps with animals that would otherwise be euthanized, and the other one is the Frankie Fund. We don't have that, and yet the money is coming from donations surrounding Baltimore City to those things. So I just thought I'd bring this up in terms of funding. We need somebody to create a nonprofit that is not a part of the management, even if you have a private-public partnership, that will support the shelter in the ways that you suggested. I mean, and, you know, it can be sort of like a pet support network, the way operating similarly to the way the student support network does. As a matter of fact, I've talked to Lori Taylor Mitchell, and she would be welcome to have not a massive amount of food, dog food and cat food, that would be brought to the present sites that they have. But, you know, and a lot of that is also donated by the Pedigreed Foundation and the Petco Foundation in terms of supporting some of these things. So, you know, in terms of fiscal soundness of this, I think this is great that we're moving forward this. I feel very positive. I think the animal shelter has done a lot, and the county executive has reached out this year a lot more than in the past to get the word out. And the answer to the problems in animal sheltering is in the community. And it means really engaging them in this way to do whatever they can. It's not just about going out and walking dogs. There are lots of things. I think the other thing is we have the microchip readers now at the dog parks. One of the things I floated with the firemen at the town hall last week is putting in microchip readers in every single firehouse in the county. Do you know what that would cost? $15,000. And I've actually gone to different firehouses and asked them how they felt about that. I thought, well, maybe it's an intrusion or they're going to see it, but they all welcomed it. And a lot of them said, you know, it'd probably be better. The police are the ones that get the calls for this. But I felt the police are already encumbered by other things. And it would be more welcome that if you knew that there was a firehouse in your neighborhood and you found a dog or cat and you could bring it to them, that would be a thing they could do. So anyway, thank you very much, and I
Thank you,
support
Ms.
this.
George.
And I'm happy.
Can I ask, did you mention this at the county executive's budget town hall meeting?
Yes.
That was at the firehouse you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Mhm. And you know what? I have these signs that say Fund BCS. I gave out 120 signs. All the Oak Crest people were there as Councilman Mark, so I hope they get their light at the entrance. But they all held them up as well as the firemen in support of funding for BCAS.
Thank you, Ms. George. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts they'd like to share with Ms. George? Well, thanks again, Ms. George, and thanks for what you do. Okay, Ms. Belcastro, do we have any additional speakers?
Not on this item, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Next item will be, we've been trying to move Deb Schindel up on the agenda because she's been waiting till the very end at most meetings. So we're going to move you up right now, Ms. Schindel, for page 3. And I think I missed you earlier, so sorry we had to make you wait. We'll try to make it fair. And this is page 3, contract 4.
Good evening, Councilman Chair and members of the County Council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract for Excel Tree Expert Company, the Forest Valley Tree and Turf, Inc., Pristine Landscaping and Tree Care, LLC, and the Davy Tree Expert Company to provide tree trimming, tree removal, stump removal services at various locations within Baltimore County as needed and on call. This is a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewals. This agreement has an MBE goal of 20%. It was competitively bid based on best value, best qualified experience, and obviously the low bid. I do want to mention that this contract is not only used by property management, it is also used by DEPS and DPW and any other county agency that may need it. And what we typically do is we work with all of these contractors. They handle majority of our very large trees, and we give them all, we try to balance our response and our workload to them based on the fact that we try to spread the love around to them and make sure they all get some work. I'm willing to take any questions if you'd like.
Thank you, Ms. Schindel. Councilman Cash?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank you for attending last night's meeting regarding the Hereford Senior Center. It's so exciting. I mean, there's
It was a great packed house, so thank you, sir. You were very supportive.
Why didn't you say hello to me?
Sir, you were so busy. I will get you next time. You're very popular. It's hard to get to the room when everybody's standing in line to see the councilman.
That's a good answer. I like that.
Good answer.
But, sir, you did a great job, and thank you for your support in that. It's beautiful. It is. I think they did a nice job. I think all districts are wonderful, but I am a little partial. I do live up in your area, sir.
Okay, do any of the other council members have any questions?
You do have Friendly Farms.
Friendly Farms, okay,
It does have
that's a
Friendly
plus.
Farms.
You like good crab cakes, fried chicken?
Do any of the other council members have any questions, comments, or thoughts they'd like to share with Ms. Schindel?
Welcome.
Okay, hearing none, thank you so much, Ms. Schindel.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, our next item is item page 113, Steve Lafferty, and this is contract for Redgate Real Estate Advisors. Director Lafferty, how are you?
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract with Redgate Real Estate Advisors, LLC, for real estate, financial, and development-related services to enable us to lead the redevelopment of the Security Square Mall. This contract is for $441,000 for a 12-month period of time with an automatic 6-month renewal. Funds for this consultant services are available from the county funds that have already been made available for Security Square Mall. As you may recall, the county has put $15 million, and the state has put $15 million into the redevelopment initiative, which did include the acquisition of the former Sears property, as well as a contract approved by the council for purchasing 12 more acres of land on the west side of the mall next to Rolling Road. Redgate brings extensive experience and expertise in such redevelopment, especially large scale as we see with the mall, as well as in helping to finance and develop financial strategies that are going to be invaluable for us as we move forward. The pre-development work that we anticipated when we got the funds from the state and the county are covered under this agreement. And the contract scope reflects really the needs and interests that came out of the charrette that we conducted now well more than a year ago that included hundreds of community participants. Redgate's contract will be provided in 4 phases. The first phase for planning and pre-solicitation activities, then a 6-month-long solicitation process following that first phase. And it's during this phase that we anticipate they'll be bringing us development partners with whom we can then move forward for the physical redevelopment of the site. Along the way, they'll be providing us advice and recommendations on future governance also, since there are multiple owners on the property and the need to really assess and evaluate the relationships of each of the partners, including the county, with each other. The first phase will also include a short-term activation plan. With 90 acres of impervious surface, we recognize that there's an opportunity to provide some activation on site to give it a little more life than what now appears when one drives through that property. They'll also be assessing the conditions, helping us to understand better the relationships of the other owners as well, and then build upon the charrette itself to conduct a more refined market analysis and help us develop an infrastructure improvement plan, which is one of the elements that came out of the charrette itself. One of the first stages really from the charrette was to put together a way to create a different road and stormwater management network that really is missing on the site. And then they will be working with us in the next phase to develop basically the best strategy, whether we should have a master agreement, multiple partners, enter into a P3 after they've really evaluated what the market will support moving ahead. And at that stage, they'll be working with us as well to develop a financial structure and help us to identify potential investors that will support the county's decisions moving forward. Throughout the entire time, of course, there's going to be community engagement, work with county agencies, stakeholders, yourselves, other interested partners to make sure that this really does reflect the direction that the community wants to see. And then the final phase really is the procurement phase. This is where the solicitation will lead or ask Redgate to bring us developers with whom we can actually enter into agreements either for our own property or in conjunction with some of the other partners. The timeline will be set as soon as we finalize this agreement. We really believe this does realize the goal of the charrette as well as the intent when the state and the county invested so much money in this mall. And on behalf of the administration and the residents, we ask you to support this contract.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Did any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts to share with Mr. Lafferty? Councilman Marks?
You go first. No, you go first.
Councilman Jones?
Okay, thank you. I fully intend to support this, and I recognize the administration's support for redevelopment in this area. I applaud it. The question I have is just regarding White Marsh. We're about to go out to bid on a contract for that planning effort, correct?
We have put an RFP on the street for a small area plan, and right now we do not have anybody who's bid on that contract.
Really?
We're entering into conversations, though, with potential vendors that might get us to that point.
Okay. You're confident that we will secure?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. What's the timeline, do you think, on that?
Well, since we didn't have any bidders on our first RFP, we're having to restructure the RFP. So I'm hopeful that within the month we'll actually be able to bring somebody in, but I can't give you anything more definitive, Councilman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Jones?
Yes, Director Lafferty. I had a couple of quick questions. So we had the charrette. Now we're going to hire them. And then what happens after we hire them? We take their recommendations and move forward?
Part of the agreement and the scope is that they will actually identify potential partners for us. So it's more than a study. It's really asking them, based upon their evaluation of the market, what may be realistic on the site, hopefully negotiating with the other owners on the site as well as to what their goals and interests are, is to then identify development partners for us and help us then to enter into those negotiations to bring someone to actually start the work.
Okay, do you think Red Gate is more knowledgeable than the, 10, 15 developers that operate in Baltimore County every day?
I believe Red Gate has the kind of expertise and experience that we need for this project.
They know more than the people that operate in Baltimore County every day?
I'm not going to compare them to others, Councilman. We didn't have conversations with any of the other developers. And as you know well, there are very few developers that do mixed-use, multifaceted projects of this scope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Mr. Lafferty, one quick question. Did I hear you say that the exterior will be activated while the other areas of the site will be in different levels of progress?
Part of the scope is that they help us develop a short-term activation plan, which would be on the outside, not inside the Sears building that we own, but outside on the property.
I think that's great, because I think one of the things we should do on all of these larger projects, we have in the 2nd District at the Pikesville Armory, one thing we've been trying to encourage the Armory Foundation to do, and they've been very receptive to this, is to activate the exterior while we have a much longer range project. And I think for all of our developments that seem insurmountable in scope because they're such large projects that we can incrementally have progress. And I think activating exteriors of projects like these, it's low-hanging fruit in terms of having community buy-in early in on the process. So I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Councilman Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Lafferty, thanks for the conversation related to this leading up to the issue being brought before us. And I know that we talked about it. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about the interplay between this group and then the eventual redevelopment authority that you and the executive's office has been working to stand up, and I appreciate your effort in that.
Well, what we've asked Redgate to do is to help us also look at the governance structure that might best suit not only the mall, and as we know, in a lot of malls, they do have cooperative associations of the tenants and the owners. That would be part of it, as well as helping us to look at overall the governance structure of the West Side and the West Baltimore County Redevelopment Authority, since its scope will obviously be much more significant than the mall itself.
Right, obviously, yeah, since you're right, since and obviously the authority has a larger swath, just thinking about the positive partnership that is presented through the authority being stood up, this being in its zone of operation, and then being able to participate in conversation with experts and folks that the county has already brought on.
And I think that the opportunity will be for when the board is stood up on the authority, for them to then work with Redgate, give some guidance, and perhaps even identify some future investors.
Right. Absolutely. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Young. Thank you, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Department of Public Works and Transportation. Mr. Russell, I'm assuming you're here for that. And this is a rental of roll-off containers. And I heard Madam Mayo say earlier today that there are 3 things you can count on: death, taxes, and trash. And so this is about trash, isn't it?
This is trash.
My new reality.
Yes.
Mr. Chair and Councilman, tonight we bring forth 3 contracts, one with Northwest Refuge Service, one with Superior Facilities Management Service, and one with the Dirt Express. These contracts were competitively bid. The total for the 5-year period is $1,053,000. They provide community cleanups. Communities call DPWT, they want to have a large cleanup. We have the contractors actually deliver these 30-yard dumpsters to each site. And we average about 200 of these a year. So it is used heavily.
Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts for Mr. Russell? I have a comment, Mr. Russell.
Yes, sir.
I would say, well, as Madam A.O. said earlier today, death, taxes, and trash. It's really interesting. It's been my observation over the past 6 years that one of the events that communities look forward to is their roll-off coming. And is that true for my colleagues here? Yes, okay. Yes.
Very good, thank you.
And so this is really, really important. I think all my colleagues are aware that it's one of the ways where we can make the day of our respective communities by getting them a roll-off. And for some reason, there's a great feeling too after that day when you've emptied out your house of all the refuse that you don't need anymore, things that used to be important to you, but now are less important. And so they go to the roll-off.
That's it.
Okay. Just wanted to share that observation. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is page 1, and we have Mr. Gutwald, Director of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. The Maryland Department of Environment recommends that Maryland jurisdictions implement the model ordinance produced by MDE for floodplain. And Bill 6-24 brings Baltimore County into alignment with the model ordinance while maintaining the high standard of floodplain protection that has been a hallmark of the Baltimore County program for both tidal and non-tidal waters. What I want to kind of go through is what the general changes to the organization of the model ordinance compared to our current floodplain management program. There truly is not a ton of changes to a lot of our standards and requirements for floodplain and building in the floodplain ordinance or regulating the activity in the floodplain ordinance. But there is a huge change in organization that we're trying to consolidate many of the different places where we regulate. Building code, Title 4 of Article 32, Title 8 of 40, that's bringing it all together under one place so everybody can see when you're dealing with property that's in the floodplain, it's a better way to, it's a streamlining sort of the process, if you will. I was dealing with an applicant this morning and they're looking at the county code and I said, no, you got to look at the building code for that issue. So. It now introduces variances instead of waivers and modifies some of those and establishes some criteria. The criteria are very similar. For instance, currently the code says minimal impact, and now it clearly states that you can't increase the height of the floodplain instead of just saying minimal impact. So it gives some standards associated with when you're requesting a variance to the floodplain ordinance. And then, of course, we added, a number of different definitions and updated the definitions to current standards. I want to highlight some of the differences between our current regulations and what's in the model ordinance. One of the big things is that now the maps have a more regulatory authority. If you remember, we adopted the maps back in October of 23. They have a lot more data, and it's more information now on the maps when they did the analysis to updating the FEMA maps. So now they have more of a regulatory authority than before, just requiring everybody to do a study. Speaking of studies, that's not necessarily a requirement more, because now you can look at the map. You can, if you're definitely outside of the floodplain area, there's more decision-making capabilities with utilizing the map. We've provided alternatives that without having to do a floodplain study if you're creating a flood protection setback. So now we have a further definition of a change in our definition of flood protection setbacks. Before it was just straight up 20 feet, but it still may have required a study depending upon where the development was occurring. Now, if we now don't know what the BFE, we now established a 100-foot setback or a 50-foot, and that depends upon the topography and where you're measuring it from. So those are some of the changes, and allows alternatives rather than having to go straight to a study. That if you create this large setback from the current floodplain, and we don't know what the BFE currently, and in a lot of cases with those updates of those floodplain maps, we now know what the base flood elevation is. So that's a good mark. There is limitations to accessory structures. Before it was limited to 900 square feet in our current regulations. MDE is now required it to be 300 square feet with the possibility of a variance of up to 600 square feet. This is a requirement of the model ordinance. And then I mentioned about the variances. One of the things I'll end up with is what we currently require, and is also included in where we go above and beyond what the model ordinance requires us to do. And we currently do this now, and we've incorporated it into the model ordinance as well, is that the FEMA only requires, and this is why a lot of times you require a study, is because they only map and they only identify and regulate where the flood area drains 1 square mile. The county goes down to 30 acres. We're looking at drainage areas of 30 acres. So all that in between that's like 0.5 of a square mile, right? So we're looking at 30 acres, and if it's undetermined, then the additional study is required if it's undetermined what the base flood elevation is. So that's above and beyond what the model ordinance is requiring us to do. The studies require us to do ultimate land use. Meaning if you have a property that's vacant, but it's zoned DR35, you got to assume that it's going to be built at DR35. So your study is going to look at the ultimate land use on that. The model ordinance doesn't require that, but that's what the Baltimore County does to project into the future what the floodplain may look like if the area where it drains is above and beyond. The other thing in terms of the building code that is not required is that we look at cumulative improvements. So from the beginning of time that you've done improvements, you know that after you hit 50% of improvements of the structure, it kicks in additional requirements in the floodplain. Sometimes that gets piecemealed over years. We keep track of that and do a cumulative response to that. Those are the major differences. That's the highlights of the model floodplain ordinance. That's the end of my presentation. So if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gutwald. Councilman Catch?
How'd you know I had a question?
You and I have a connection that we...
Fair enough. Mr. Gutwald, first of all, some questions in the bill. I believe it's page 20 somewhere. It talks about how the state has turned over zoning to the counties. And of course, with the new bill that the governor has put in, where I think they're trying to amend the bill to have the the state have some say in zoning within a quarter of a mile or a mile of, let's say, the light rail. Mm-hmm. If that happens, are we then responsible for making sure that the provisions in this bill are adhered to, or does the state, since they've rezoned the land or allowed more development, are they the ones who would take over implementation of what's in this bill?
No, certain. From my understanding, this even though they're allowing for that legislation to allow different zoning to occur, we are still responsible for making sure it follows all our regulatory requirements.
The bill, now I understand it's going to be amended. I don't remember what it says about stormwater and that kind of thing. I know it talks about adequate public facilities, kind of dismissing that. Does it then, so it does require that the county, when this development is proposed and planned, that we as a county must follow these regulations regarding stormwater, floodplains, et cetera.
Correct. I mean,
There's
those are
no
state regulations
exemption.
that, well, unless the bill exempts them from it, I'm not familiar with that as exempting them from any other regulations. Excuse me. So yeah, it would still be applicable.
Okay. Let me see, where is it? On, was it page 31? Excuse me, page 31, line 5. The, on page 31, lines 10 and 11 talk about facilities in case there's an emergency. And it also refers to storage of hazardous materials, facilities that handle or store hazardous materials. Now, we don't allow, I would assume, the storage of hazardous materials.
Correct. It's just
near like 100-year floodplain. That's
you do it. Correct. Okay. This is, you're in the definition sections, so those things are regulated and say they cannot be there. That's just the definition of what we consider critical and essential facilities. There's limitations of what you can and cannot do and how it's restricted. And if it's there already, this is what you can only do. You have to protect it. You have to do floodproofing, those kinds of things.
Well, I knew they were definitions. The next thing on page 34, it mentions climate change on line 21. When I was first elected to the legislature, the world was supposed to freeze. And, I can remember Time magazine with a picture of the world freezing, and then we went to global warming. Now we have climate change. Are you going to put a definition of what climate change is? Did I see? I don't think I saw one.
I don't think we saw one either. I think this is sort of illustrative of things.
Is a what?
Is illustrative of things that we look into consideration when you're talking about flood protection elevation. Well, these are the things that when we talk about a study that's being done and where that will be, these are reasons why we're going to ask for it to be elevated because of all these factors that occur. I don't think we're actually regulating it based on climate change or ice jams or whatever that kind of stuff. Those are illustrative examples of why we ask for things to be elevated.
Don't you think it would be helpful to have definitions? Because
I don't know if it's not in here. Sure, we can.
Maybe it's somewhere else. I don't know.
I believe climate change is defined, and a lot of times in our regulations, we refer to Webster's Dictionary. I mean, that if it's not defined in here, we would point to Webster's Dictionary for the definition.
I just think it would be helpful because I think that some of the elements of climate change, I think they need to be part of the law permanently. And so anyhow, the next thing on page 54, line 4. Yeah, I hope that you'll possibly consider a definition of climate change. Let me see what's on page 54, line 4. Oh, yeah. deals with enter into a written agreement or written contract with another Maryland community or private sector entity to administer specific provisions of these floodplain management provisions. Administration of any part of these floodplain management provisions by another entity shall not relieve the community of its responsibilities pursuant to the participation requirements, on and on. What is, I mean, do we have?
That's between, we are the community, and that's the
Like
federal government.
with another county or?
No, what that's referring to is the definition of the floodplain administrator, and that's the county is the community with with FEMA or MEMA. So we enter into an agreement of what we'll do and how we'll regulate. Part of it is adopting this model ordinance.
Okay, I'm just reading these and trying, okay. Page 55, lines 7 to 15. This discusses, for instance, change in the flow of water. I guess, if the water's flowing one way and this, a proposed development, the water's going to be obviously this would contribute to a flood. Is it policy of the county that when this development is looked at and approved, that someone had mentioned that? Oh, sorry. Someone had mentioned that the height of the floodplains could not rise. So does that mean that whatever?
So whether it's, so floodplain is three-dimensional, right?
You're gonna have to speak louder.
I'm sorry, your floodplain is three-dimensional, right? It goes up and down and it goes from side to side.
I thought
So
somebody said that it was something about not going up by more, it can't go up.
So you cannot increase without providing, what this is getting to is what we call, if they're going to modify or change the waterway, then they have to go through a process called a letter of map amendment. And it has to go through the Federal Emergency Management Administration for that review. But the local jurisdiction would review those applications and say they've completed the application and done the analysis for everything that's required, and then submits it to the Federal Emergency, to FEMA for their review, to consider changing any of the floodplain. So you can't do it. You just can't come in and say, I'm going to do this, and here's where the floodplain's going to. No, that has to go through a process. It starts with the county and ends up with FEMA to change those maps you adopted back in October.
Because if you do this, it's possible that you could
impact other properties. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so the amount of water that is coming off of a piece of property today, when the development is done, there can't be any more water coming off that property.
They can't divert it, correct.
Okay, so next thing is, what if I live in the 100 or 500 year floodplain, and if you have a mortgage, the mortgage company really forces you to buy the flood insurance, which is smart. If you own it, of course, it's your choice, one way or the other. What happens if you're not in the 100-year floodplain or not in the 500-year floodplain, but in a special circumstance, your home becomes damaged and flooded, and you don't have the flood insurance because, government's telling you you're not in the 500, 100-year floodplain. How does that work?
So I'm not an insurance guy, but if you can buy flood insurance when you may not be in a designated area as by defined. Remember, as I started off this, the FEMA only regulates areas that drain more than 1 square mile. We go down to 30 acres, so we hopefully will catch that in that situation. But if it's already an existing condition and you didn't buy flood insurance, I mean, that's a civil matter.
No, I guess what I'm thinking is, if government is studying this and coming up with the 500 and 100
It's
years.
qualified. It's a qualifier. That's why we have conditions where when somebody is proposing to build something, we ask for a study because it looks like this area is going to drain more than 30 acres and we have to protect your assets.
The thing is that you can't build anything that is going to add to the 500-year floodplain or the 100-year floodplain? Or is it only the 100-year floodplain that you can't?
Well, we're regulating the 100-year floodplain, yeah.
Say that again.
We're regulating the 100-year floodplain. I believe that's right, correct, yeah.
And can anything be built in a 100-year floodplain?
Not in the riverine floodplain, and you can only do it in the tidal floodplains if it's elevated flood-proofed that's the coastal floodplain. It's limited as to what you can do. So absolutely no development can occur in the riverine floodplains.
Okay, I have a relative who is now deceased, but who his advice was, because he was an engineer, always buy a house up, not down. So I've always listened to that. So we, as far as velocity of water, we don't allow that to increase.
So that would be all part of, if that's all part of a flood study, that we would be measuring the velocity if we didn't have the base flood elevation and we didn't know where that was, or we're creating a large distance from where we believe the map floodplain area and a setback. That's the flood protection setback that we've created and enhanced. But if you're not sure of what the base flood elevation is, that's where you would do a model and you would measure velocity and all those kinds of things to determine how high and how wide it'll go.
And it's not allowed, though, to enlarge the 100-year floodplain, or?
Well, part of that study will determine what it is. Remember, I talked about ultimate land use. So
Right.
We're going to look at the conditions into the future and determine what the floodplain is going to be. Yeah, it's not that you're not evaluating, you're not allowed to build in the floodplain to begin with.
Right.
So, and you're not allowed to change the waterway unless you do a letter of map revision or amendment. So those are the only conditions, and there's a whole process that those flood studies will measure all of those variables to determine whether or not they'll let you move forward or not.
Okay. I guess that's the questions that I have. So with the environmental conditions changing as they are, I know the state is looking at stormwater management and studying it and probably going to recommend changes. We're going to do that, I would assume. Do we need to do it, or is it voluntary?
I'm not aware of, I'm aware that they are discussing some of the changes to the stormwater management regulations, but I know there's been a discussion and the county has commented, but I'm not really involved with that. So that was environmental protection and sustainability. So they're the experts on stormwater management. They do utilize the floodplain maps and the floodplain regulations when they deal with stormwater management, and take that all into consideration. So you can't have a storm management facility. Well, no, I think there may be conditions where you can have a stormwater management facility in the floodplain, but typically when you're dealing with stormwater management, you're trying to send the water where the water has always naturally gone.
If it's determined Okay, so let's say our stormwater management is based on so many inches an hour, in a bad storm or whatever. I think that they're going to find that actually it's higher now. Do we change? I mean, if it's shown that the studies, which assume a certain amount of rainfall in an hour, that we're underestimating it, is there a mechanism to adjust?
Sure, that's the different studies and methodologies that are referenced in design manuals and what they use, because a lot of the flood studies that you're talking about are the models and programs it's used is the same models and programs they use for stormwater management. So that's all taken in consideration, because yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the drainage area and everything's draining into a pipe, because it's storm drains rather than, the natural, that all takes into consideration about what's the velocity coming in and what's the ability for that pipe to handle and how much is going to go over that pipe versus go through the pipe to the stormwater management facility when it's piped. So yeah, all those things are taken into consideration when they do their analysis and models based on changes to impervious surface and all that good stuff.
With stream restoration, do we look to reducing the velocity of the water? Do we look at that stream in relation to the flooding that occurs already or may occur? Do we look at that or not?
I can't speak to that because, once again, that's not my purview. But yeah, in my past life, yes, that's what we looked at. I mean, one of the reasons why you look at stream restoration is because you're looking at the erosion going on and you're trying to control it and the pollutants that follow into the stream following that. So, and of the ones I've been involved in another jurisdiction, yeah, that's exactly what you're looking at.
When you've all read about Lutherville Station, which I'm tired of, but anyhow, there's a park where they have all these industrial type buildings, et cetera, and it was built at a time when the stormwater management wasn't as good as it is today. So I guess you can't require a builder who's building somewhere else to improve that stormwater system. Does the county upgrade some of these stormwater systems that are not really working real well, because they're based on laws from X number of years ago?
Yes, we do. There's projects that I think in the capital improvement program that EPS deals with all the time, but I'll let Madam Mayo speak to that. She seems interested.
I'm going to add that to my list. I have a long list I gave the county executive. It's this long. So
I would just like to, Mr. Chair, may I be recognized? Just like to say a perfect example is the Windsor Mill Road project. It's not just sidewalks, it's the full infrastructure of the stormwater drainage system as well, because that's an issue with water laying and then not being able to dissipate. So as certain work is done, I'm sure that the colleagues from DPWT can tell you more about it, but it is a part of the assessment that is made when work is done. Oh, our infrastructure is aging. When you look at a jurisdiction, we look young compared to a Baltimore City, for example, but the infrastructure is aging, particularly as Chairman Patoka likes to address, is the inner beltway communities. Those communities are 50, 60 years old, and then some in your district, in 3, that the infrastructure is aging, so jurisdiction has to keep up with those things. If I've learned anything about what's important in terms of government is addressing the aging infrastructure. A few. I wouldn't say so. It's the age of the infrastructure. Right now, there are a couple little side streets where they've built houses, but not significant development in that community. I mean, I'm really familiar with that community, but after a period of time, the infrastructure just erodes.
So much development just adjacent to Ellicott City itself. I've got to believe that is part of the problem. I think this is something that we as a county need to look at, is to make sure that we're not going to set us up for an Ellicott City.
Well, Councilmember Katz, I'll tell you one person that I have always admired and highly regarded, and I had a chance to see her recently, is Mayor Shirley Franklin. Mayor Shirley Franklin was the mayor of the city of Atlanta. And one of the things she took on, I can remember this, because when I was in my executive leadership class, she hosted us in Atlanta and talked about infrastructure and the need to always be attentive to, as you develop and expand, to be attentive to your infrastructure. So she took on the water system. I remember her in her pink hard hat, you know, and photos and things. So jurisdictions have to be cognizant about development, but also older communities that over time, the systems erode. And you've got to address it. So I would believe, and again, this falls in DPWT's portfolio when they talk about their planning and bring things to the council. They include issues associated with stormwater, needing to upgrade the system, stormwater and sewage, which is really two parallel things.
Sorry, they don't see what's going on, of course, until they're flooded or until their sewer system has a problem. So
yes, sir, and it's very important, and
yeah.
You know, that's the 360 look at community, not just the service needs, but the infrastructural needs, and that's something that the county, we in this administration have tried to focus on. Our aging infrastructure, trash, our police stations, our fire stations, the infrastructure, our bridges. It's just something that you've got to stay focused on.
Yeah, and I think we're doing a good job trying to catch up, but the words catch up, and that costs money, and
that's the operative word.
Yeah, and I appreciate that very much. So thank you both of you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Katz. I do want to just comment on some of your thoughts. One is related to infrastructure, and I guess, Madam Mayor, we learned something today. It's that there's life, death, taxes, and trash, but there's also stormwater management, and so that's one we have to add to it. But infrastructure is really interesting because, like you said, Councilman Katz, it's not sexy.
No.
It is costly. It's incredibly costly, and it doesn't impact the geography on where the area in which we improve. For example, in Powder Mill Park in my district, we have a 54-inch sanitary sewer, and we are currently building another 54-inch sanitary sewer, and we're doing it not to accommodate the quarter-acre lots in Lochern that have been there since the 50s. We're doing it to accommodate everything north and west of Lochern. So while we're spending this incredible amount on having imagine this, two 54 50-inch sanitary sewers. That's a big sewer. That's this big.
50.
And so that's not sufficient to carry the current sewage load. So we're building a companion parallel 54-inch sewer in that park right now. And I'm sure they're at working today because it's such a great day. But it's costly. It impacts the county as a whole. So I'd ask my colleagues to keep that in mind when we do think about, we all want to be advocates for our district, but we also need to be advocates for the county. And so infrastructure is an area where we can be strong advocates for the county. So,
And I guess you're not campaigning for reelection, telling the people that you're putting in you're putting in 54-inch sewer pipes.
yes, but the alternative is messy.
Oh, I know, and people don't realize how important that is. They'd rather see a school or a senior citizen center or a park.
I don't think anybody has ever won an election based on increasing the sewage capacity for an area, even though it's so important. Or flood maps for that. Mr. Gutwald, do you have aspirations to run for office? Don't talk about flood maps.
No, sir. I'm done talking about
And sewage. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We have one more item, I believe. And thank you, Mr. Gutwald. Thanks for everybody for hanging in there. And Councilman Jones, it's your item. We have, this is on page 2, zoning regulations, multifamily 2/2 condominiums. Councilman Jones.
Yes, I will do my best to be brief. Basically, this is regulations that will allow some 2/2 condominiums. You may have seen them. Basically, it's a townhouse on top of another townhouse. The way we got here with this particular bill is a developer was building he was pre-approved, was already approved. There was an old plan to build apartments. And when he approached me, I told him that I was hoping that he would consider building some homes, and some homes that would be affordable to moderate income folks. And he said he would get back to me, and he came back with a proposal to build the 2/2s, and that's the genesis of this bill. And the reality is there are some concessions, if you will, but he's building significantly less units than he would have built had he built the apartments. And I think going from rental units to home ownership is good for the community, is good for our county. I think building reduced units compared to what he could build today, right now, with the apartments is a plus, because it doesn't add as much stress on our schools and other things. So that is the genesis of the bill, and I look forward to answering any questions or comments from my colleagues.
Thank you. Do any of the members have any questions, comments, or thoughts for Councilman Jones?
And if I could, no, go ahead. I'll just wait. I understand there's a speaker, and I may respond after that.
Okay. Ms. Belcastro, we have a speaker.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Brad Croner from the administration.
Good afternoon, Chairman Patoka and members of the County Council. Brad Croner, Baltimore County Office of Government Affairs. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight on Bill 824. As Councilman Jones described, Bill 824 would allow for 2/2 condominiums if they meet certain locational criteria, including being located in the Liberty Road West community area if the property or properties include a combination of DR and business local zoning. We agree that Baltimore County must do more to expand housing opportunity and promote home ownership. So I want to thank Councilman Jones for putting this legislation forward to help create those new home ownership opportunities. We're proud of the continued work we've done together to expand housing access, from working together on the HOME Act, as well as to create the Housing Opportunities Fund. So thank you for your continued advocacy on this issue. We do support the intent of Bill 824, but we have some concerns on some of the technical details. I'd like to thank Councilman Jones for discussing some of those details with me earlier yesterday. So as drafted, this bill would exempt such development from bulk, height, and area requirements contained in the Comprehensive Manual of Development Policies. Bill 824 would also allow for development that meets the criteria in this bill to be exempted from the county's impact fee and approved via limited exemption. We would like to work in partnership with the council to propose amendments that support the intent of this legislation while alleviating those outlined concerns. We believe that these technical changes would lead to a stronger bill and stronger communities. Thank you again to Councilman Jones for working to create new homeownership opportunities in Baltimore County and for agreeing to discuss our amendments. And thank you to Chairman Patoka and the council for the opportunity to speak. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, comments, or thoughts for Mr. Croner?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Councilman Ertel.
Mr. Croner, why is this bill different than 124? Isn't this a special bill?
I would have to defer to the Office of Law on that.
Mr. Benjamin.
May I be heard?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Councilman Ortels, based on my understanding of this bill, as I read it currently, with regard to Bill 124, there was more specific directional language contained therein. I don't believe that this particular bill at this point has the level of specificity that there was in 124, but does include the sort of specific directional language that was present in 124. And I don't believe that anyone had said that this particular bill, 824, was drafted to benefit a specific project. It's my understanding that several properties may qualify under this particular bill. So at this point, based upon those facts, I think it would be difficult to construe 824 as a special law at this point.
Councilman Jones?
Let me add that some of the provisions here were taken from similar bills that were done in not just my community, in terms of the 2/2s, as well as I think District 2 had some 2/2s, and the proposal was for 2/2s in Hunt Valley. And, you know, I personally, I'm not crazy about them, but it is a product that is more affordable to people who can't afford $500,000 for a townhouse. So it is a way to get people in there, and I look forward to working with the administration on their concerns. But one more thing I would add, like I said, this project was, the person has a pre-approved plan in their hand that was sort of grandfathered in before there ever was the impact fees, for example. So, you know, there were things that had to happen for him to sort of take a chance, because in his mind, every time you take something that's pre-approved, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So I look forward to talking to you.
Certainly understand and looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Hang on, Mr. Croner, I got a question myself.
Sir.
First, I'll ask any of the members. I just want to follow up on Councilman Ertel's question. Certainly that the administration over the past year has been my observation to take a deeper dive into land use issues. And it's a change. And I just wanted to know, like, when you looked at the previous bill that was vetoed, when you looked at this bill, what agencies are weighing in on legislative proposals? Is it the law office? Is it the planning department? Is it permits? What agency is kind of digging in on these to see if it's legal, if it's appropriate, if it's fitting?
When we see legislation introduced, I certainly ask any department that would have insight into that for their feedback. With Bill 124, one of the concerns was just the exemption from the Comprehensive Manual of Development Policies. This is a manual in the county that helps ensure that there are strong development standards in place and make sure that communities are high quality. It's actually enshrined in the county charter, and we did not personally think that it should be, that a project should be exempted from that manual.
I guess the reason I ask is I was in the previous council, and there were some highly unusual proposals that came forward, especially towards the end. And there wasn't a lot of discussion or dialogue related to some really extreme land use proposals. And Lafarge, there was one related to allowing, I mean, there's a reason the critical area is called the critical area, and we had a proposal to allow for building in that area. And the administration was pretty silent on those, as I recall. And those were extreme considerations that were brought before this council. The things that have come up lately have been less extreme, but seem to garner a lot of attention. And so I just was wondering what has happened between now and then. And I think, and I've heard say this over and over, this is a very thoughtful council. I haven't seen like any extreme proposals come up relative to my experience in my first term as a council member.
I think I would just say that we have reviewed legislation that impacts land use. We've looked at things that exempt projects from the comprehensive manual development policies, and we decided to take action and weigh in.
So is it the legislative team that's reviewing this?
You mean the Office of Government Affairs? Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add one thing?
Yes.
I think it's also important to recognize that what you're talking about are policy calls that are the purview of the county council, of the legislative branch. You all are presented with things all the time, and you make the policy call as to whether or not to do something or not do something. And you all do that, and that is what a legislative branch does. And then an executive branch implements those policy calls. Obviously, the law office reviews the legality of certain things, and as Mr. Benjamin has weighed in, but you all are the policymakers. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well, thank you,
sir.
Mr. Secretary. And the reason I bring it up is because in the previous council, some of us were taking a lot of punches, metaphorically, on kind of having a relatively moderate view on land use. And we were, it was really not a great experience for me, I'll say, because when I offered an option to some of the land use proposals, it wasn't well received, to say the least. I think some other council members had a similar experience. But now, I mean, I wish you guys were there then. So I'll leave it at that. Any of the council members have any additional?
The administration wasn't there for Red Maple either when we gave it a environmental variance to build on wetlands for a 50-unit building that is on top of a sponge for the top of the Herring Run, and that wasn't special legislation.
And Councilman Nortel, that was a very heated debate. It was actually one of the most unusual. As I recall, there were 3 abstentions. Is that right? 3 abstentions, Mr. Secretary? There were 3 abstentions and 3 votes towards the 3 nays. And yet it passed because of some absurd land use strategy.
My attempt failed. I think it actually failed because.
Right. Thank you for the clarification.
It had, I think, 3 abstentions. 3 to 1 in favor of, but 3 abstentions. Yes, sir.
So I guess my point, Mr. Croner, is that we have a council that's more thoughtful, at least it's just my opinion. It's really subjective. That has been very thoughtful in its deliberations, certainly more so than, in my opinion, the last council. And yet there's a dig in. And I think given kind of the changes that the Baltimore County will go through over the next 9 months and into 2025 and 2026, that, I don't know, we should be more in sync on these land use issues.
No, I certainly value the partnership. I agree that this is a thoughtful council. Glad to have a working relationship with the 7 of you.
Okay. Any of the members have any additional comments, questions, or thoughts? Okay, thank you, Mr. Croner. Do we have any additional items, Mr. Secretary?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you all for hanging in there, and we enjoy the weather, everybody. It's really beautiful outside.